power tools and big screen TVs and stereos and DVD players and computers and printers and scanners and, I mean, you name it, I've got it. Electric refrigeration, I mean, I've got everything. Basically, I've got everything, and the cost of the system, the energy system that to me, to run this whole thing, is less than the price of a late model used car. Except the difference is a late model used car would only last maybe 5 to 7 years before you need another car. But this solar energy system will last me the rest of my life. So anyway, there's really no, I've proven to myself. And by the way, I never had a power outage in that whole time. And I've never burned out a light bulb either, because basically these kinds of power systems make so much cleaner power that it's much easier on your equipment, so you save a lot of money on equipment because it doesn't wear out. In any case, the point that I'm trying to make is that there really is no compelling reason why we shouldn't be on a huge stampede to switch all of, or as much of our energy use as possible to that which can be derived by solar energy. Now, when I say solar energy is not only light, but it's also wind. Wind is actually happens only because of the sun, the heating of the sun. And then there are other forms of energy like lunar gravitic energy, which is basically the tides. We have tidal energy too. Now, hydropower, such as the 70% of the renewables that are used in New Zealand, and I actually compliment New Zealand for being such a renewable-centric society. And by the way, although hydropower, one way to harness hydropower is by utilizing dams, there's also technologies now developed that allow you to just put a generating device just in the water. It doesn't have to block anything. It just goes with the flow, as it were, and can still be generating energy. So there are plenty of ways to utilize the natural energy flows and convert them into useful forms of energy so that we can have a good standard of living without wrecking the place. And these technologies are well developed. They're available all over the world. And while it's true that solar energy system, it costs more than a television set, it's not true that it costs more than other kinds of products that people are used to paying for. For instance, sports cars or pickup trucks or, sort of like these kind of like medium durability lifestyle items, when you go down to New Zealand, you oftentimes see a lot of these really, what's that Australian brand of the Holden kind of customized pickup truck cars, that are really kind of like hot rods. Well, I'm telling you, it's like for the price of one of those, basically a household can be on solar energy and take care of like 95% of its energy needs from the sun. So I just think we have to kind of like maybe change some of the way that we use our discretionary income to give ourselves pleasure and satisfaction, and for a while start focusing that on making expenditures that give us survivability into the future and to give us a healthy ecosystem. And then once we've made those expenditures, since they're very, very durable, they're long-lasting kinds of products. I mean, solar electric panels and solar hot water panels are some of the most durable products that have ever been developed by human beings. So can afford to sort of like take our eye off of the consumer stuff for a while and sort of start focusing it on the functional stuff in order to make this world more healthy and survivable. By doing so, we'll not only be having, because remember, once you pay for this stuff, then it's like the energy is free. So if you have a 7-year payback time as against what it would cost you for electricity from the power company for your equipment, then basically after that 7 years, for the life of the equipment, which may last as long as 30 or 40 years, that energy is basically being delivered to you without any cost. And you know that the cost of electric company power is going to go up, but the cost of sun power, once you've paid for the installation of the equipment, well, that then becomes a fixed cost. There's really no inflative pressure on that. So basically, you've fixed your energy prices for life. So there's so many compelling reasons, which are both economic and having to do with ecological responsibility, that basically, as far as I'm concerned, it's a total no-brainer that we really need to making a major push in this direction to move towards these natural-based energy conversion systems.
However, of course, we've got vested interests, and particularly, as you know, in America, vested interests has basically got a full court press grip on Washington. So if that's the case, it's a huge challenge to be able to break all those monopolies.
Well, it's kind of one of the biggest problems that we face in making these changes is recognizing that there are certain fundamental basics of the economic theories that we've come to rely on that are actually false. They're not only false, but they're fraudulent. Basically, they have been promulgated in order to allow certain elements of society, and I would call them the ruthless elements of society, to prosper at the cost of everyone else. And in the end, I think what we've got to do is we've got to actually start calling these people out and calling them what they are, essentially being, con artists, fraudsters, thieves, and so forth. To me, it's like a lot of the people who are pushing the concept of their vested interest to the detriment of everyone else is actually a criminal. I hate to say it, but I think they're actually involved in criminal behavior. I have a master's degree in business administration called an MBA, so I'm really studied in what the whole economic and business system is all about. And the fact is that even if you get the kind of degree that I got, what you find out that when managers are not taking into account the fact that an important part of the stakeholders that are involved with their organization are, the public. The public interest is really, really important. And it's like if you are not paying attention to that, that is considered to be, by all the standard textbooks of management, that's mismanagement. So it isn't even like that the business profession itself supports this kind of overarching, highly selfish behavior, because they realize that you can't kill the goose that lays the golden egg. If you do that, you're actually just a criminal. You're just a thief. And unfortunately, that's a lot of what's been going on in recent times. And I hate to say that the American culture has kind of been at the forefront of fostering these false ideas, but I'm afraid it's true. But in the end, it isn't even really about a nation. It's kind of like more about a culture. It's like about a culture of selfishness that justifies all kinds of corruption in really almost every sphere of life, from the professions like lawyers and doctors and politicians to companies like insurance companies and drug companies and energy companies. These people are they're justifying the unjustifiable. And basically they're mismanaging their companies for their own personal interests, for careerist personal interests. So that's why you get people who destroy the wealth of millions of people ending up with $500 million golden parachutes. This is not what the business system says is the way you're supposed to do things. This is corruption, So basically we have to actually call it what it is, and a lot of these people have to be brought to book for what they're doing, and there has to be some kind of deterrent created by the actions of the public and the actions of public organizations to let it be known that this kind of thing will no longer be tolerated, because otherwise it'll just keep on growing, and it is still growing, unfortunately. I had some hopes that when Obama came in that basically he was going to sort of like set a new moral tone, but I'm afraid that unfortunately, that has not happened. And until we set that new moral tone of basically that there are certain things that are corruption no matter who's doing them, there are certain things that are basically criminal activities no matter what kind of spin you want to put on them, then basically we're going to remain in the middle of the mess that we're in. So I see a big part of this is really kind of like both a moral and political renaissance, that people will recognize that, we can't just keep letting the ruthless run roughshod over all the rest of us.
Because it comes around to social responsibility, isn't it? And I mean, when it's all said and done, I do harp on it. When I breathe in, the planet breathes out, and then when I breathe out, the planet breathes in. There is this relationship going on with us. I mean, we don't honour the sacred anymore. We don't actually realise we're connected into this web of life, and that essentially whatever happens to the web, in the end, will happen to us, as Chief Seattle would say.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. It's like, I call it the illusion of separation. One of the biggest problems that human beings have is they have this, and I think that it comes from, it derives from the fact that we have senses. Our senses sort of like tell us, okay, if I'm looking at you and I see your skin, that your skin is the boundary of you, you know. But do you want to know something? We already have instruments that if I were using those instruments and I could see the energetic emanations of your body, I would see that you don't end at your body. You don't end at your skin. You're totally integrated with the rest of the environment. And there are all kinds of energies at different wavelengths that you're both emitting and absorbing that make you totally integrated with this matrix of life that we're embedded in. So it used to be kind of like New Age magical thinking, but the fact is it isn't even New Age magical thinking to understand the connectedness of everything. That's actually now the most scientific understanding, is to understand the connectedness of everything. So basically, we don't even really have sort of like two sides of kind of like the ultra-cultural, spiritual people and the ultra-technical people. They don't even have to be in argument anymore. We can all be on the same side. We're all connected. Everything's connected. Everything's connected to us, and we're connected to everything. And we can't afford to keep on acting like we're going through this world as some isolated entities. It just ain't so.
And it comes round again to how we make these changes. And, of course, I just trust that listeners here in New Zealand and picked up on the web will go out and they'll start some action. And one of the best ways, of course, is around a dinner table. Invite your friends and just share. How do you see it, Jonathan?
I think that each of us has a lot that we can do. I've made the decision myself to focus on implementing the change to solar energy and to natural energy technologies like wind, solar, tidal, and so forth. I may not myself, each person in this world has a certain amount of influence. Everybody has some influence. There's nobody in this world that doesn't have some influence. And each one of us can devote our influence toward making the changes that we recognize have to be made, and the ones that we know something about and that we're particularly acutely aware of. So I really believe that basically it really is a matter of commitment, not just by a few leaders, but by millions of people have to make a commitment to do those things that they can do in order to make this world move in a more healthful, prosperous direction. Well, you know, what I would like to add is that this technological problem that we have that is fostered by a philosophy of chopping down millions of trees, digging up millions of tons of the earth, to creating massive amounts of commodities, which then get utilized to manufacture unbelievable quantities of goods, which have a relatively short lifetime and then are basically returned to the earth as garbage and junk. This is really the fundamental thing that has to change. We actually have to move to a system that values the labor input, which includes design and manufacturing, more than it does the capital input. Because basically, until we do that, we will have a situation in which we're always just using capital to dig more and more materials up or chop down more trees or, create more commodities that we then just throw away. And I'm not basically saying that that what I'm talking about is against capitalism. It's just actually really kind of like remodeling the capitalist model. Because the capitalist model says that capital has a preeminent role in creating, in allowing for its own continued growth. But the fact is that we could actually just as easily be creating durable products, and that the capital model is based on the upgrading, customization, and renewal of basically modular product systems. So